All right, looks like we have a good amount of people, and the webinar is being recorded as well, so we can send that out to everyone once it's done. Thanks everybody for taking the time out of your day to join us for our webinar on the new product that Civis is launching, Civis Studio. We have about an hour planned. We're going to go through some slides, have a peek into the feature itself, and then leave time for Q&A at the end. We can go to the next slide. I want to highlight how we can do the Q&A tools, which is in the meeting tools bar at the bottom right of your screen. If you can click Q&A, I'll be tracking those and organizing them, and so we can have those at the end of the call once we've gotten through all of the content. You can go to the next one. So the agenda today is to meet the speakers. We're going to do that overview, have the demos of real-world examples, and we're going to be focusing on exploratory data analytics and natural language, AI-powered development in any language, and enterprise code management. Next, we'll introduce all of the different speakers. Today, we have 4 different contributors. We have Amos Buddy, who is our VP of Professional Services. Matt Fessler is our head of product. Owen Harrington Woodward is our solutions architect who will be leading the demo. And then myself, Greg Kim, an account executive here at Civis. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Amos, and then we will get started there.
Great. Thank you, Greg. And thank you, everybody, for joining today. We are so excited to launch this product for you all. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why we built it. I've worked in data for 15 years, lots of different contexts, different hats. One kind of thread that I think everybody who's worked in data kind of understands is that like we do too much work that is one-off and ad hoc. Despite tooling that has changed a lot over the past decade and a half or longer, you know, there's still, we get lots of questions around like, hey, can you just pull this number? Or questions around why do these 2 numbers disagree? Or if you're building a dashboard or a machine learning model or another data product, kind of feeling like you have to start from scratch. Maybe there's a common data model that you want to work from, but it doesn't have exactly what you want, or you don't know how things were built, so you kind of have to start over. I wanted to highlight at the beginning of this webinar the capabilities that Civis Studio is bringing to our customers around turning that ad hoc work into workflows in production using software engineering best practices. We also included and kind of held off on releasing this product until we could fully integrate it with some AI capabilities as well, because it's 2025 and that's what you do. And so we're going to show you some of the AI capabilities in addition to that development experience later today. And one of those things that people ask us about is like, oh, do you have a chatbot for data? And the answer is like, well, yes, in a sense. And so we'll show you how that works. I'll go to the next slide, please. So when I am talking about like ad hoc work, sometimes another way of looking at it is like maybe the way that a data team has worked is starting to become, it's like the victim of its own success. More people want to use the data. The team is growing in size. There's more data that's getting pulled in to your data platform. And that creates complexity. And when you have complexity, you do need to kind of change the way you're working. And so there are some indicators that maybe a data practice is becoming too complex and needs to rethink process and rethink some of the tooling. If you have different teams that rely on a metric and they have different numbers that answer the same question, that can be an issue, partially just because you end up wasting time trying to rectify this. I've worked on data teams where we had like a data hero and everyone had to ask that person on details of like where clause filters do I need in order to get this metric correct? And they're like doing all these crazy joins and like one person knows the answer and then you're like copying and pasting SQL code back and forth. And that's a risk for obvious reasons. It's also not very efficient. Analysts are, if you're working across multiple tools, across like if different people are working on the same project and the data's on their laptop or it's being kind of pulled to their laptop, that can be an indicator that things are getting a little too complex. Also, just kind of as an outcome, if the data is there, the report's there, but for whatever reason, the culture of the organization means that people aren't using it, or they kind of doubt it, then it might be this might be an opportunity to think about, okay, what are there ways we can change our process, change our tooling? You go to the next slide. Thanks. So as we talk about Civis Studio, I did want to put this in the context of like what Civis tries to do for our customers. We start off every intro call with Civis with a slide that looks like this. Civis platform is an end-to-end data and analytics and artificial intelligence platform. We try to be the vendor that you can rely on for all of the various components of your data platform without locking you in and being overly constrictive. We want to be able to support all of the key components that you need. So that includes data ingestion and data warehousing, getting the data from your critical applications into Civis so that you can start building insights, analytics, and products on top of it. We have an AI and analytics workbench. Basically, we allow folks to work in their favorite language and environment of their choice. That's Notebook, SQL, Python, R, and then orchestrate that through Civis's native orchestration or our DBT integration. We have visualizations and reporting and application development. So basically, you can take the data that's in Civis and then share it with folks in a way that's consumable for them. And we have various integrations to support that. And then we wrap this all up in a single user interface that tries to be both simple for users to navigate while also allowing for flexibility to control your environment as you'd like under a single security and governance framework that is SOC 2 Type 2 and FedRAMP authorized, with access controls that you can feel confident that your data is secure and protected. And then what does that mean? So as the landscape changes, as new technologies come online, we want to make sure that Civis can stay up to date for you all. So we're building Civis, and you can see as some of the recent feature releases that we're building Civis to level up data teams to kind of meet the moment and also support them in some of these challenges that we talked about. So I'm just highlighting like a list of some of our recent feature releases and sort of why we built them. Our DBT core integration helps support our customers who want to build enterprise data models in the platform. Our AI SQL assistant supports analyst productivity. Our taxonomer tools, AI-powered qualitative research. Our Civis support agent allows for faster time to resolution. FedRAMP moderate authorization is a strong credential for enterprise security that we're very proud of. Redshift serverless provides more flexibility in the storage environment that people are interested in. You notice 2 of these features are starred. If you're interested in learning about those, just reach out to Civis. We may, some of this is by invitation, but we have it available for folks who want to learn more about it. And then I'm going to add 2 bullets around Civis Studio. One is providing a software development lifecycle for data completely natively within the Civis platform, so you don't have to go outside of Civis to work like this, as well as an agentic chatbot for the Civis data catalog that we'll show you in just a minute. So with that, I'm going to pass it to our head of product, the esteemed Matt Fessler, to talk a little bit more about how Civis Studio works, what's going on under the hood before we open it up and show you some examples.
Great. Well, Amos, thank you so much. So what is Civis Studio or Civis Studio? The TLDR on this is Civis Studio is an integrated development environment, which is an IDE, fully embedded in Civis platform with a connection to a coding copilot as well as Civis MCP. What are you going to utilize Civis Studio for? We're going to get into a lot of detail with that with Owen, but I do want to highlight the major functionality that you're going to be able to use Civis Studio for is to build, test, and manage your data or your code all in one location, be able to collaborate on the single code base, and then utilize AI to improve your code with the context of your data catalog from Civis. So before I get too ahead of myself, I do want to highlight something I mentioned here, which is the MCP. So Some of you may or may not have heard of MCP in the context of AI before in discussions with your coworkers, but MCP is a model context protocol which provides a standard way for AI agents to actually interact with other systems. Basically, you can see here in this little diagram, you have Civis, MCP, and Copilot. This is going to allow AI agents to take actions in other systems like you would within an API, or automatically add context as the agent responding to a user's prompts. Our Civis MCP server allows agents to get information specifically about jobs and workflows. But most importantly, in some of the ways that you're going to see how it's used, it's getting information from the data catalog. This one key element here is going to enable AI to actually provide helpful answers and avoid some hallucinations that you would get otherwise using generic AI prompting. Right now, it's currently configured for Civis Studio for quick startup, but if you're more into utilizing this within a third-party tool, this could be configured for VS Code or for Claude Desktop. So that's just a little bit of a heads up for folks that are interested in that as we're going through it. So now you're hearing a little more about what Civis Studio is. I'm gonna highlight some of the ways of how it can help you. These are all coming from customer discussions that we've had along the years of struggles that our customers are actually dealing with. So currently without Civis Studios, if you are dealing with this and resonate you, we're going to highlight how this could help. So the first one that we're going to hear in terms of a problem is something that Amos referred to as being a victim of your own success, right? You are building out more and more different workflows or different codes so that you are going to be handling new data that's coming in. As you are building that and as you're growing as a data shop, sometimes it can feel like you're Jenga-ing the code together as you're growing so rapidly. Additionally, as you're growing, you're going to be modifying your code quite a bit to improve upon it or to add new elements to it as you're doing more imports. So some of that, like what had happened before, this was working, why isn't it working now? Some of that can get out of hand. Also, as you're improving your overall data shop, you're going to be using the latest and greatest tools, right? So inevitably that will lead to AI. As without Civis Studio right now, there's a lot of use of AI tools that you're getting generic suggestions and you're getting generic code that may or may not break your workflows or your code that you currently have working. And then finally, this is a little bit of dirty laundry from users. When we get screenshots with about 80 tabs on it, I'm guilty of this, by the way. We can see that people are going in between tabs. They're changing tools. They're changing what they're going for through day to day to go about their development lifecycle. We're going to help change that within Civis Studio. So Civis Studio is going to allow you to, first and foremost, do all of your coding and all of your management of the code on one platform. You're going to be able to do this right directly in Civis, within Civis Studio. Managing this is also going to allow you to help do version control. So you can see which version was working and what's the difference between version 1 and version 2 that was working and not working, right? So this is going to be a really nice way to manage that functionality. The big element here for AI, now that we are using Civis Studio, you're going to be able to get contextually accurate suggestions for your work that you're looking for. And then finally, this is all underneath one roof in Civis Studio, so you're going to feel like you can actually move through everything without having to have 80 tabs open. Now, I'm going to push this over to Owen so that he can show you some of this stuff live and in action versus just me talking through it. So, Owen.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So one of the things that I do here at Civis as a solutions architect is to help folks get the most out of Civis platform. And I'm really excited to talk about Civis Studios as a way of doing that. And so I'm going to talk through 3 different use cases, and we'll show how all of these use cases can happen in Civis Studio, and in fact, how they all build on each other to help mature your data practice. So the first thing that we're going to look at is some exploratory data analysis. This is where we're going to get that data chatbot behavior that Amos was talking about a little bit earlier. We're going to ask questions in plain English. The agent is going to run all the code, and hopefully we're going to get some good insights out of it. The next thing that we're going to look at is leveraging that same agentic AI, but to actually develop production code. So in this case, I'm going to be working with a DBT pipeline, and we're going to go from an empty DBT project to something that is running and ready to go pretty quickly, leveraging the Civis MCP. And then the last thing that we're going to see is how to use Civis Studio to make sure that you're version controlling everything, and to actually deploy changes to production that are picked up directly in your Civis platform environment. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. We do have a lot to cover here. So I have my Civis Studio started up already, but you can find it under code Civis Studio. And I'm just going to level set here about what setup steps I've done already and what's already taken care of for you. So I installed a couple of extensions in this notebook. I installed the Jupyter extension and the Python extension. I signed into Copilot already, but beyond that, everything else is out of the box. So that includes the Civis Python package. That includes regular GitHub authentication for version control. Copilot's a separate authorization. You have to authorize it to access the environment. And the Civis MCP servers also already installed. So with that in mind, I have a blank notebook here, and I'm also have, luckily, an old notebook that another analyst used to analyze some data before. And I'm going to use that to give the chatbot a little bit of a boost here in terms of using the Civis Python API client and connecting. But it's going to run all these cells for me. And we can also, if you need help getting past that setup, you can work with Civis support. So, yep, it's writing some basic code here. I can see it's got the query to hit the Civis database setup. And that's going to take just a second. So now I'm getting some basic visualizations. The data that we're looking at here is Chicago 311 service request data. So we can see most of the things are completed. There's a few that are open and some that are canceled. This is pretty good, but I want to see a different breakdown. I want to see a breakdown along service requests by time of day and by week. So I'm going to ask it to elaborate a little bit here. And just in the interest of time, I have some of these prompts ready to go, but we'll also see how we can do some dynamic prompting here, depending on how much I like these outputs. Yeah, so this is really helpful, but I wonder, can we get just one report that shows this is by day and it's averaged that way, but can we get a breakdown of the whole week by day? And so we can see those spikes throughout the day. Okay, we're getting a heat graph here. All right, we'll give it one more try to see if it can give me a line chart. I don't want to spend too long on this because we do have some other things to get through here, but hopefully this gives you an idea of how you can have an interactive experience chatting against the data. Okay, so it's overlaid all of them here. Yeah, So hopefully, as I mentioned, that's like a good idea of what this looks like. So this is great, but moving on to something that we can put into production, we want to do some transformations of the data. We want to take the raw data and turn it into a reporting framework. So I have, as I mentioned, my empty DBT project here. And you can see I've actually run the empty project and nothing to do. So this is on main right now with basically a blank DBT project, and we're going to get some working DBT code into main. So the first thing that I want to do here is make a new branch from main, and we're going to call this DBT NCP. Awesome. So I'm going to start a new chat. And then I'm going to ask it to produce a DBT source file from the same table that we were just looking at. So it's going to actually read the database or the data catalog here and fetch all that metadata about what columns are in there. So it didn't quite find it, but I'm going to give it another prompt because I know it should look in the Chicago schema, and it grabbed it this time. So in a second, it's going to produce that. While it's working on this, I'll also call out the other advantage that you have is that Civis is right here, including the data catalog. So if you wanted to write this code yourself, instead of prompting for it, you've got the data catalog right here. You've got all the same information that it's fetching, so you could write this yourself as well, and you still have that integrated experience of the data catalog is right there next to your IDE. This is pretty good, but what about the data types? So if it doesn't get the data types on this pass, we'll move on, but it looks like it did, so that's good. I'm also going to check, yep, okay, so it got the database name right. I'm pretty happy with this now, so I'm going to keep this. And now that I have my sources file, let's have it make some really basic data marts for us using this data file. So I'm just asking for 4 different marts here on a few different topics, from department performance to long-running or duplicate issues. And it's going to go ahead and start making those. And then we can take a look. The goal here is just to get a basic DBT project that we can run just to demonstrate how quickly you can do development in this environment here. So this looks pretty good. In real life, I would be reviewing this a little bit more carefully. Okay, cool. So it looks like we got the 4 basic marts. I have a couple of options here. I could go ahead and commit this to my DBT branch and then go into Civis and set up, or not go into Civis, but like go into a new tab in Civis and open up a DBT job and run that pipeline. But I don't want to do that because that's going to take a while. So instead, I'm just going to run this directly in the terminal here. And that way I can confirm that my code works before I commit it, even to my development branch. So gotta get into the right directory here. And then we're going to run dbt build. dbt is already installed along with the Redshift connector, so you don't have to worry about that. The only setup that I did here with the dbt was I ran dbt init, and I set up the project earlier, and then I got rid of the model files. So awesome. My pipeline ran, all those models worked. That's great. So now I can commit the code here. So the sources file, and then that. I'm going to go ahead and discard the changes to that file. I don't need that now. So I could publish this branch if I needed to, but I'm just going to merge it and delete it. So I'm not going to bother to do that. Switch back to main. Merge that in and push the changes. And now I can go back to my DBT job. It's referencing main here. It's going to look in the right directory, all of this. And we can run this here. And this also demonstrates like there's going to be a little bit more overhead here than running the dbt build command the way that I did in the terminal here. And while this is running, I'm going to set up one more element that I want to show, which is pushing to production for something other than a dbt pipeline. So I have this workflow here, and I'm taking advantage of one of our version control features called auto checkout. So this is going to make sure that this object is always referencing the most recent commit on whatever branch is configured. So I've got this set up on main, and that means that once I merge changes or push changes into main, this workflow is automatically going to pick up all of those changes. And it also disables me from editing this workflow manually. So that ensures that your production level objects are always running on version control. And this is available for jobs as well as workflows. So you can make sure that everything is configured to pull. And then no matter what your development cycle looks like, whether you're, creating a branch and running that just like I did, or as you'll see when I update this in just a minute, pushing directly to main, it doesn't matter. Once it's on main, it'll get picked up. And you can also configure that with development branches as well. So you can always have your development branch get the most recent changes for testing. Awesome. So we can see that this ran as expected here. It picked up those changes, and now it's actually building models instead of just telling me that there's nothing to do there. So with that in mind here, I'm going to show, this is that workflow that I have over there. I don't need any of these things right now. I'm on main, great. So what I want to do, I have retries on one of these tasks, and I just want to add retries to my other job, just in case. So I'm going to make that change here. All these files automatically save, so you don't have to save your changes. With the one exception is notebooks. You do need to save a notebook initially just to save the file name. So this is already picked up. The GitHub integration registers that I've made this change, and I'm going to add the new retry here and sync the changes. And now I need to refresh the page here, but this should, maybe it takes one more second. Yep, this has picked up those changes automatically. So I was able to push those changes in Civis Studio, and my workflow picked it up automatically because I've got auto checkout enabled. All right, well, with that, that brings me to the end of the demo here. I'm going to hand this back off for our Q&A section, but thanks for watching.
All right. Excuse me. Thanks, Owen. That was a very good demo there. We want to highlight that we do have in the bottom right-hand corner, the area to do your Q&A. So we've had a couple questions trickle in there. So go ahead and do that. We do have a handful of questions that we've had during the demo, and so I'll read them now. The first is, can I access other GitHub repositories besides the one I used in the settings? Owen, if you want to handle that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have your GitHub credentials are already taken care of there. You could go ahead and just run a git clone command into another directory. So one thing that I didn't mention before is that this is persistent storage. So you don't actually have to commit your changes. It will save your files from deployment to deployment. And similarly, you can make a new folder and clone a Git repo into there or do anything else.
All right, good. We have a couple more. Let's see. Next one is about the MCP server. What types of things broadly can I do with the MCP server? Owen, if you want to take that one as well.
Yeah, so there are a number of tools broadly. They're going to be database metadata, so listing the tables, listing the schemas, as you saw there before. You can also get information about your jobs and workflows. You can kick off a job or a workflow run, and you can post a new workflow.
Awesome. Next question we have, this one's from Zachary. Are there any issues with multiple users hosting Civis Studio sessions concurrently?
So every user has one Civis Studio. They'll have their own. It's your own place to come and work. But there's no issue with multiple deployments. This works just like notebooks if you're already using notebooks. So it'll run on the same compute resources as notebooks.
All right, and if anybody obviously has follow-up questions.
Yeah, and I think the only other thing I would add to that is, what this introduced when you're using Git and version control is the possibility for merge conflicts, right? And so if you're not, as an organization, used to working in a Git type workflow, just some things to think about how you're going to do your CI/CD, what branch you're working off of, those types of things, which, I think we'd be happy to provide some recommendations and guidance on how to best handle that. But it is something for folks who are new to Git to think about.
All right, thanks, Amos. We have one now from Stephen. Do you need a paid Copilot account, or will the free tier work for this?
The free tier works. Bear in mind that you are going to hit that usage limit, and that you're also bringing your own terms of service with this. So you'll be subject to whatever the terms are of that free account, and that's something to bear in mind as well.
Awesome. Always good idea, or always good when things are free. Let's see. I think we have one more question here that was submitted. What types of parameters can I use in Civis Studio?
Yeah, so you'll be able to use all the same parameter types that you can for regular Civis jobs. And this is one of my favorite features of Civis Studio, actually, because if I'm writing a script template that I know that I'm going to have parameters in, I want to be able to set up my development environment exactly the same way. And so with Civis Studio parameters, I can mirror the environment parameters between Civis Studio and the eventual script template.
Awesome. We did actually have a question about the Q&A, just to highlight, it's the 9 dots in the meeting tools and not the actual chat window. That's for the specific Q&A. So if anybody was having an issue with that, that's why the chat is turned off. So maybe we can just give it another minute or so and then I can throw it to either Amos or Matt for any closing remarks before we conclude with some final thoughts and next step. Okay, while we do that, if you want to go to the final slide, yeah, if you have any other additional questions, and if you are completely new to Civis, you can feel free to reach out to me and I can set up some time to dig into your specific use case. Any Civis customer can continue to go through the channels they do with their support and contact people there. And I think with that, it does not look like there are any additional questions. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Amos to just close us out here.
Cool, thank you. And thanks everybody again for attending and for your questions. We're really excited about this launch. It's kind of, you know, we see it as more than just an additional feature for your existing workflows. We really do see it as unlocking a new way of working. And with that, you know, there may be some ways of thinking and learning that you want to do if you're not familiar with, like I mentioned, with VS Code, with version control and a data practice. And so we're here to help. We've got a team of experts who have been working with this tool since we've launched it internally. We've got some best practices and advice that we can apply for your situation. So yeah, really excited to see what folks can do with the Civis Studio, the Civis MCP, and the integration with the Copilot. And so yeah, thank you again for your time.